I believe that I have been stalked by God my whole life. I do. He's relentless. He's got like some baptismal rifle that he's up there with. Hold him, almost got him. Over and over and over, he's been relentless with me. I went to Catholic school. I was raised Catholic. It's really a great faith with a lot of great people in it. And I was deeply in it for a long time. And then as I grew up and became more screwed up, I just left all religion and got farther and farther away from God. But as I tried to find my way back, God didn't make sense to me. The God of my understanding, the way it had been taught to me, the way I understood it, just didn't make sense. My mother committed suicide when I was 13 years old. By the time I was 20, I was making I think by 24, I was making about $300,000 a year. And most of it went directly up my nose. Most of it was spent on stuff and drugs and anything to make me feel better. Because the more successful I had become, the more miserable I had become. I was empty inside. I was a shell. And the more bitter I became. When I was 18 years old, before I really started to become bitter, I moved to Provo, Utah. Wow. It makes Stepford look sane. Well, gosh, how do you do? Welcome to Provo. And I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, what the heck is in the water here? What is all that about? These people are far too happy. What's going on? But I'm smoking, and I remember I worked at K96, and I was amazed because I had a short haircut, and I looked like a clean-cut kid. I wasn't, but I looked like a clean-cut kid. And I was standing outside, and it was snowy and cold, and I'm standing outside smoking because you couldn't smoke indoors, and I'm just smoking, thinking, I hate this place. So cold. And I'll never forget the general manager of the radio station. He came in, and he stopped, and he looked at me, and he said, he saw me with a cigarette, and he said, I'm sorry, Glenn, I just assumed that you were Mormon. And I said, oh, that's okay. I just assumed you were normal. Had a lot of Mormon friends. I only lived there for 6 months, and I don't know, for a while there, the Lord had that baptismal rifle. He's like, holy cow, hang on, hold him, almost. Ah! And I went my own path. And before you knew it, I found myself transferred to Washington, D.C., where I worked at WPGC. And I couldn't wait to get out of Utah. I couldn't wait to get away from all those happy people. I need to be with people who are miserable, someplace out in the East. So I went out, and I'm working at WPGC, and I go out, and first day on the job, part of the morning show there, and I meet the news guy, and he says, oh my gosh, I am so glad to meet you. I hear you're from Provo. And I went, no. I temporarily lived there. And he said, oh. And I said, you're not Mormon? Yes. Yes, I am. He was a great guy. He was a great guy. Great family. inviting me over for family home evening. I come from a dysfunctional family. I'm like, what the heck is all this crap, playing games and stuff with each other? You, kid, stop talking to your dad. That's just not right. And I eventually turned on my friend. He was so nice, but I fell in with the wrong crowd. And it was popular to bash him. And so I did. To my eternal shame, I bashed him. Lo and behold, I found myself unemployed pretty quickly. Now I was out of job for 6 months, one of the longest periods of my life that I had been unemployed. I'm 18 years old, but I found myself out of work. And can't find a job. Finally find a job in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I'm going to be the program director and the morning man. 18 years old, just about to turn 19. Program director and morning man, youngest in the country. Look at me, dig me, I'm successful. I go down to this station, and I think I am going to run this place. Oh, yeah. And then I meet the general manager, who's a Mormon. And I'm thinking to myself, how many Mormons are there, man? Jeez, we gotta tie their tubes or something, because they're breeding like rabbits. It's so funny that you would applaud at that, because if I said that in a different setting, it'd be like, yeah, let's tie their tubes. You hate mongers. So I go down there, and nothing happens. I just watch. I watch these collections of Mormons breeding. Doing something to take over the world, I'm sure. And time goes on. I find myself later in life going to Baltimore, Maryland. It's going to be the biggest job of my career at that time. Making more money than I ever had before. More fame than I probably ever had. My career is just skyrocketing. Each job is bigger, each position is bigger, each position carries more money, more fame comes with it, but I'm miserable, and I'm drinking, and I'm doing drugs. But fame has got to be the answer. Money has got to be the answer. I just got to get to that next job. If I can just do this job, then I can get to the next job, and then I'll be happy. And when I get to that one, well, no, but that's not quite right. It's got to be the next job. I got to buy that next thing. I had put a show together for a long time with a guy who worked about a year on it. 5 days before we went on the air. 5 days before we went on the air. Biggest show of my life. He calls me up and says, I can't do it. I'm going to stay here. I changed my mind. I can't do it. I said, what are you talking about? We've been doing this for a year. We've been planning. 5 days away from broadcast. What do you mean you can't do it? I call everybody I know. Everybody I know. Do you know anybody who would work with me? Do you know anybody that we would sound good? Here's what I'm trying to do. Finally called a guy. He said, you know what, Glenn, I've got the perfect guy for you. I know exactly who would be the best guy for you to work. You're going to hate each other personally, but you're going to sound great on the air. I said, I'm going to hate him? He said, oh, yeah. I said, no, he's not. He said, area code 801. I call him. He sounds nice and reasonable. Gets to the airport. He's got like a homemade shirt on. Bringing his luggage in a hand cart. He was my best friend before we left the airport. His name is Pat Gray. Best friend. Best Mormon I've ever met. Good man. We had a blast. We could finish each other's sentences. They used to say that we were two brains, one mouth. It was great. We had such a blast. But I kept going lower and lower. I kept becoming more and more wealthy and and more miserable, and he wasn't. He wasn't miserable. He just kept saying to me, you know, Glenn, you don't have to be miserable. Oh, really? I stopped drinking coffee. That's going to fix everything, huh? He would invite me over, family home evening. No, I've seen that. People talking and playing games and laughing. No, thank you. But he was there. He was there at my very bottom. He was there when I crashed, when the doctor gave me 6 months to live, when I couldn't look at myself in the mirror anymore. I'm an alcoholic. Well, alcoholics, man, they're winos. They're bums. They smell like urine and stuff, I think. I don't think I smell like urine. I don't think I'm an alcoholic. That was the game that I was playing in my head. I just always had an excuse to drink that day. I'd get up every morning and I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, today, you're not going to drink. I'd look myself in the eye. You're not an alcoholic. You're not weak. You're not going to drink today. Make myself a promise every day. Well, every day I'd fail. Every day I'd find a reason to drink. Every single day I'd say, well, tomorrow. And so every day I'd get up, hungover, and I'd look in the mirror, and I'd say to myself, my gosh, you just said 24 hours ago that you weren't going to drink, and you drank. Well, you're not pathetic. You're strong enough. You're not going to drink today. And then I'd find an excuse, and the next day I'd look at myself in the mirror, and I started to believe I'm pathetic. I'm worthless. I'm powerless. I am the worst person on the planet. And there were things that I had done in my life. I fired a guy for bringing me the wrong pen one time. I don't even remember his name. And he's one in a long line of many that I was less than good to. And all the while, my best friend, Pat, would stand by quietly and say, you know, it doesn't have to be this way, Glenn. Pat knows, because I've told him since. For as much as I admired Pat, I wanted him to fail. His family could endure anything. I couldn't endure the smallest thing. No matter what the trial was, his family could overcome it. Mine couldn't. I didn't want him to be right because I didn't want to be a Mormon. I didn't want to be, quite honestly, I mean, come on, let's be honest. There's some freaky things we believe. Like, you can be happy for all eternity. Don't drink coffee. Don't swear. Don't smoke. Don't do drugs. Be nice to each other. Serve one another. Blah. Come on, man, I want the easy one. Can I come into church for like 45 minutes, do the deal, and let's go on? Well, my family fell apart. I fell apart. I actually lied to my kids one morning. I used to tell my kids stories every night before I went to bed. I tell them stories about Inky, Blinky, and Stinky, the three little mice that would go to the island of cheese, where it would snow Parmesan, and they would have to escape Thomas the cat. Thomas the cat lived on the Isle of Cheese because he knew the mice would come in their marshmallow boat and come across the sea to try to eat the cheese. Well, they only escaped one time narrowly because it was a blizzard. Normally it's just Parmesan cheese, but this was a bad storm. This was a bad cheese storm. Started to rain giant wheels of cheese and knocked Thomas the cat out. That's how they got back on their marshmallow boat and floated back to safety. That was the story I told my kids one night when I tucked them into bed, but I didn't remember it. I didn't remember it because I was having blackouts. Scariest thing you can possibly imagine. Having a blackout. Whatever you see on TV, that's not a blackout. I don't remember. Did I sleep with them? That's not a blackout. A blackout is when you drink so much alcohol, you actually put your brain to sleep and your body is still functioning. That's what a blackout is. And when you experience a blackout, it will freak you out. But for too many people, it doesn't stop them from drinking. It only did with me the time I had the blackout and my daughters came down to breakfast and they said, "Dad, tell us the story about Inky, Blinky, and Stinky. Tell us the one that you told us last night." I realized that I didn't even remember tucking them in, let alone the story. And I sat there with tears in my eyes and I thought, you are so pathetic and you are missing their childhood. What is wrong with you? And then I lied to them. And I said, I remember the story. Let's see how much you remember. The only reason why I remember Thomas the cat being hit with the giant wheels of cheese is because they told it back to me the next day. That was the day I decided to get help. I went into a church basement in Connecticut, and I stood up and I said, "Hello, my name is Glenn, I'm an alcoholic. I just don't want to drink today. Help me." And they did. Simple steps. All you have to do is admit there is a God and you're powerless. Then you got to start doing some soul searching. See, gosh, how screwed up am I? Why am I so screwed up? Then you got to talk to somebody about it. Somebody you trust and say, "Look at the things I've done." Then you have to start serving other people. In a nutshell, that's the 12-step program. But you know what? It wasn't enough for me. Because I was sober for a while, and I couldn't hold it. I couldn't hold it. I wanted so desperately to be happy. And I started reading everything. I read every philosopher known to man. I started reading Plato. And I remember thinking, 2 years before, I'm like, the stuff we used to play with as kids that I used to eat? I started reading philosophy from Plato to Kant, everything I could get my hands on. And what struck me was, my gosh, we're asking the same questions we were asking 5,000 years ago. Where's the progress here? Why is it we don't have a better understanding of life and happiness and how to live with one another? I was lucky enough to be accepted to Yale. I'm 30 years old now, about 30, actually 33. And I'm accepted to Yale to go to school, and I wanted to take philosophy and theology because I couldn't understand it. I would go into the library and I would check out books. I'd go into the bookstores and I put together my own little council. I'd go into the bookstore and I'd look for everybody that would possibly disagree with each other on a subject. I'd go in and I'd say, Alan Dershowitz, okay. Who would disagree with Alan Dershowitz the most? Mein Kampf probably would do it. I looked to the extremes. Pope John Paul, Nostradamus. It was a library of a serial killer. I'll never forget, I was at the checkout line one time, and it really was. Oh, Pope John Paul, that's a good book. Boop. Nostradamus. Boop. Alan Dershowitz. Boop. Adolf Hitler. Boop. I know I'm in some vast FBI data bank right now, but I was searching for answers, and I won't take the common answer. So I went into school, and I was lucky enough to, spend about 15 minutes there at school. I spent more time in the parking lot than I did in class, but I remember studying the early church from about 300, 400 BC to about 400 AD. Christology is what it was called. The makings of Jesus the Christ. Studying it. And I remember seeing stuff in there that I'm thinking, what? This doesn't make any sense to me. And you saw how things were put together and why the Dead Sea Scrolls are actually in the caves. Because anybody who disagreed with anything else, executed. Why? For power. Nothing has changed. It's still happening now. You look at the events of the day. You look at the news of the day. If somebody disagrees with you, they shut you down. Nothing has changed. So people tried to do everything they could to hide the truth. Make sure that the other lines of thoughts were available later. Well, I'm still struggling to stay sober, but I'm learning. There was a time in my life where I had an open book in every single room. I got rid of TV. I had a book in my pocket at all times, and a different book in every single room of the house. And every time I was in doing anything, I'd read that book. And this went on for a few years. Pat said to me, you know, Glenn, I got some pretty easy answers. Okay, Mormon freak, no thank you. So I went to school, but I couldn't hold my alcoholism in check. And then I met Tanya by happen chance one time. Tanya is my wife. I met her actually by accident. I was standing in the parking lot with my radio partner, and she walks by me, and I'm talking, and she stops. She hears my voice, and she stops, and she turns, and she said, "Are you Glenn Beck?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "You're very funny. You make me laugh. I've listened to you for years. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the laughs." She turned around and walked away. I'm thinking, chicks dig me. Well, about a week later, she had won a contest, or somebody in her office had won a contest in her office, giving away a car or something. And so I'm hosting this contest, and she's there, and there's a whole group of people, and I do a reverse lottery. If I pull your number, you lose. I live in the Northeast. We're all miserable. And we've got another loser. Halfway through, here's another loser. And it's her number. And she comes up. She comes up to the edge of the stage, and she picks up her consolation prize or something. She looks up and she says, "Thank you very much. It was a very nice time." I couldn't believe it. She was so nice. She was kind. I said, wait a minute, wait. Come here. What is your name? And she looks at me like, "You loser, we just met in the parking lot about a week ago." I said, "What is your name?" She said, "Tanya." I said, "Nice to meet you, Tanya." "Hey, everybody, I want you to meet Tanya. She actually thanked me for losing." She walks away. It's about this time that I actually fell to my knees, and I was at the edge of my bed, praying as hard as I could. God and I have a unique relationship. I believe that I am one of his most impertinent children because a lot of times I kind of, in my weaker moments, get into the mode of, "Oh yeah? That's not a good thing to do with him." But I was praying to him because I couldn't hold my alcoholism. I couldn't hold it. And I said, "I'm about to lose it, Lord. I can't do it anymore. I'm trying, but I cannot live. I cannot live with the mistakes that I've made. I can't do it. I can't carry the mistakes. I felt as though you have abandoned me in the midnight of my mistakes. I can't do it, Lord. This Thursday, if you don't put a roadblock in my way, I'm going to drink because I can't walk alone anymore. I cannot carry this burden anymore. I've tried. So it's up to you. If I drink, it's your fault. Thursday, make sure you're on Eastern time. Every day, I'm in the car. I'm talking to him. 2 more days. 2 more days. I'm actually angry at him as I am driving on Thursday to the bar. I told you I'm not bluffing. Oh, I'm not messing around, big man. I get to the bar, and I order a drink. Like a Jack and Coke, please. Bartender sets it down. I put my money down. I look at it there on the bar for a while. I pick it up. I'm about to drink it. And I turn around. And before I drink that, I look across the room, and there, across the room, is Tanya. She's looking right at me. I don't believe in coincidence. I knew that was my roadblock. I knew she had been sent as my roadblock. And I walked over to her after putting the drink down, and I said, would you like to go have a cup of coffee with me and get out of this bar? She said, sure. So we did, and we've been together ever since. I remember the time when I knew I had to marry her. I was standing behind her, and I was such a black hole. I was taking any goodness I could get from anywhere just to fill the emptiness inside of me. And I remember I was standing behind her like this. She was just looking out, and I felt so guilty because I was stealing light. I was bending the goodness from her and just sucking it all into me. She was a crutch. And I said to her, I have to be honest with you. I am stealing light from you. Without turning, without hesitation, she said, quote, you cannot steal that which is being given. Wow. Wow. Didn't take me long before I said, hypothetically, if someone like me were going to ask someone like you to marry them, hypothetically, what would you say? And she said, oh, hypothetically? And I said, yeah. And she said, no. I said, are you kidding? I mean, all this could be yours. I said, why not? She said, because we don't have a faith. I can't marry you. We will never survive without a faith. She was Catholic. She would go. I would stay at home on Sunday. She'd come back after honking in the parking lot and people, hurry up! And they'd be honking at her. And she'd come over to my house and she'd say, I went to church today. I said, that's great. Did you honk at people or did they honk at you as they left? She said, yeah. And I said, I watch TV all day. Been sweet. Nobody's been honking at me. She said, you have to have a faith. We have to go to church. And I said, you know what? Don't need to. Doesn't work. It's all about power and money and manipulation and people telling you what to do. Sorry, want none of that. She said, you know what? Your kids, you think your children know about God, but I'm here to tell you, Glenn, they know nothing about God. I said, you're crazy. I decided to prove her wrong. So that Saturday, I took us out to the favorite restaurant. Tanya was there, the 2 kids were there, and took her out to the favorite restaurant, and I got out a little notepad, a little piece of paper. I still have this, and I have it hanging now in our kitchen wall. And I wrote down, I said, kids, what is our family really all about? What is it that our family really, truly is about? What's the most important thing to us? This is the list. Number 1, we're fun. Not really what I was looking for. looking for something maybe along the lines of Jesus. Number 2, we're happy. I believe that's covered with 1 being fun. Number 3 is colorful. I'm pretty sure that one's a slam. Number 4 was artsy. Listen to me. No matter what your friends say, it's okay for a guy to wear pink shirts, okay? Number 5 is loving and kind. That one I looked at Tanya like, Jesus was loving and kind. I think that counts. Number 6, we're readers, learners, storytellers. Number 7, artful, which I believe was covered by number 4, artsy. Number 8 was giving. 9, honest. 10, funny, covered by 2 and 1, which are happy and fun. I said, kids, what is it we center our life on? What is it that we think is the most important thing we should do? Number 11, Hannah said, oh, I know, we're nonviolent. So Tanya got her way. I said, okay, we'll look for a church. So we took a phone book and we started at the top, started days. We went to everything. We went to synagogues. Sweetness about synagogues, man. Saturdays, you got your whole weekend open. It's great. Of course, it's in a language I don't understand, which kind of took the edge off. We went to a church one Saturday where the pastor was an atheist. That was bizarre. And like everybody knew it, unless you were coming there new, because he announced it halfway through in the sermon. And this is what he said, and I'm not kidding you. He said, now, you know that I'm an atheist. And Tanya and I are like, I didn't know that. Did you know that? But friends, if there is a God, we should serve him. But you don't think there is a God. We walked out and I said, well, what do you think of that one? She said, I don't know. I think I need my pastor to actually believe in God. We went to everything. We called it our church tour. The kids hated it. That's when my friend, Pat, who was no longer working with me, he had moved back to Salt Lake City, and he calls me up, and he said, are you like really doing like this church tour thing? I said, yes. He said, then you would have to go to my church. I said, no. He said, but aren't you honestly questioning? I tell my friend Pat too much. What changed my course was not just Tanya. It was reading something by Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson had a nephew. His name was Peter Carr. Peter Carr lost his mother. His father was about to die. And his father went to Thomas Jefferson and said, would you please teach my son everything you know? Teach him how to be a good man. Teach him mathematics. Teach him literature. Teach him politics and philosophy. Thomas Jefferson said, okay, when he comes of age, I will absolutely oversee his education. When Peter Carr turned, I believe it was 16, Thomas Jefferson wrote out a long letter, and it says, in science, know this. Literature, read these things. Mathematics, you must know this. Politics, do this. When it comes to religion, question with boldness. Question everything. Honest questions. Fix reason firmly in her seat. For if there be a God, he must surely rather honest questioning over blindfolded fear. Wow, that's brilliant. You're darn right. If my heavenly Father, if God really exists, he would never trap me in a room. He would make sure everything pointed to him. He would leave breadcrumbs everywhere. He would want me to find him. He would want me to ask questions. He would want me to turn over every single stone. Question with boldness. So I did. I started with atheism. I reject you because I don't know you. I reject you because I only believe in you because everybody told me you exist. But I don't know you. But if you exist, and I honestly ask questions, I honestly seek you out, and I use this coupled with this, I'll find you. Because you want me to, if you exist. Pat said, question with boldness. I thought you were honestly asking questions. I said, oh, freak boy, no, that doesn't include no coffee. He said, Glenn, how long have we been friends? I said, oh, jeez. I don't think Jesus would play a trick like this. He said, you owe it to me. You owe it to me. You owe it to yourself to go one Sunday. I said, all right, I'm not going to become a Mormon. What time is it? He said, well, I'll check, but I think the one in your area is 9 to noon. I said, what? Nine to noon? What the heck is wrong with you? You know what? If your God can't get it done in an hour or less like everybody else's God, your God just ain't powerful enough. I said to him, you know what? I'll go for an hour because it would be unfair to give your church 3 hours when I'm only giving everyone else 1. But Pat got on that, Mormon telegraph code thing that I haven't found yet, but I know it exists. Attention, East Coast. Investigator coming Sunday. We'll try to leave after first hour. Hold at all costs. And I'm driving with my kids and Tanya, and we're driving to the church. And all I see are coffee shops. And I keep saying, we're going to that one in about an hour and a half. And then I'm going to stop at that one and that one and that one. I'm going to have more coffee than I've ever had before. Yeah. So I get in and, they do the typical Mormon thing. They're nice. And some guy, he greets us at the door and he's like, we are so happy you're here. We love you. I said, give it 5 minutes, you'll hate me. So we went in and we sat for the first hour, and it was the same stuff, except for the songs. I sing one verse, I close the hymnal, and everybody keeps singing. I'm like, holy crap. Now I know why it takes 3 hours. So we're finished. We get up and we get ready to leave, and I'm just headed for the door. I'm like, get your stuff, let's go. We're getting out. I'm just like, okay, I fulfilled my obligation. My friend Pat, let's go. And there he is by the door. Hello. We just love you so much. And then they all kind of like surround us. And before you know it, somebody says, oh my gosh, the next class is about to start. You want to join us for gospel principles? And I'm like, oh. No. So we go in. I'm with my wife. She's nice. So we go in and we sit down, and this woman was teaching the class. And somebody asked a question. And I nudged my wife and I went, oh, you can ask questions here. We'll be in the car within 4 minutes. And she just did this. She said, don't embarrass me. I raised my hand. I said, I've got a question. Where's Gandhi? The teacher went, what? I said, Gandhi seemed like a pretty good guy. He'd probably hang out with Jesus. A lot in common. Nice to each other. Peaceful. To my recollection, neither of them wore pants. They got a lot going on. Where's Gandhi? Assuming that Gandhi was burning in the fires of hell. I couldn't understand Gandhi burning in the fires of hell. How is that possible? Because he didn't accept Jesus. But he was a good guy. He was living the principles. How did that happen? So the teacher said, would somebody like to explain that? And I'm like, you're going to ask these guys? Somebody said, yeah, I'd like to explain it. They explained it. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Oh, all right then. And I sat back down. We left, and my daughter, Mary, who has cerebral palsy, she's a spiritual redwood in our family. She walked out along with her sister. And they had both been, in primary. And we told them, you go in there. They try to make you drink something, don't drink it. Oh, I know you people. They left. Mary said, can we go back there? Can we go back there next Sunday? Stop dead in my tracks. Pardon me? Did you drink something? They both said, I feel so warm inside. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I said, okay. Actually, my real answer was, yes, we can go back there until they say something that just pisses your dad off. So maybe another hour and a half next week, and then we'll call it quits. Well, I went back home, and I did all kinds of investigation because I don't want to be a Mormon. I really firmly believe if you're going to go out and buy a car, you go to the Ford dealer, and you ask the Ford dealer about that car. And then you go to the Chevy dealer, and you say, tell me about your car. Oh, by the way, what do you know about the Ford dealer? And then you let the Chevy dealer tell you about the Ford. But then you go back to the Ford dealer and say, what about this stuff? And you let the dealer explain. You don't go to some fourth source and let them sell you down the river. Question with boldness. Ask honest questions. Not questions with an agenda. Your only agenda for any question should be, I want the truth. I don't care what the truth is. I want the truth. So I started doing my own homework. Within a couple of weeks, I was reading McConkie's Mormon Doctrine. I was reading it like it was a novel. And I would read it in bed, and I would highlight stuff. I'd take out my highlighter. Oh, they believe this, do they? Really? Well, if they could be consistent, then they would also have to believe this. And the missionaries would come over, and I'd say, so, explain this. Well, wouldn't that lead you to this? And they'd say, well, yeah, and we'll explain that in another discussion. I haven't had anything to drink from you, have I? It was logical to me. It just made sense to me. But boy, I put those missionaries through the ringer. There was a pile of missionaries outside of my house, man. They were like, don't go in there, man. You'll never get out. Oh, don't go in. One time, the bishop actually started to come with the missionaries because they'd knock on my door and I'd go, welcome. And the bishop was a scientist. And they just went into his office, help us. And so he came, and I don't remember what the question was, but I said to him, well, wait a minute. Tell me about this. Explain this. And I'll never forget, this is exactly what happened with the bishop. He did this. Okay, Glenn, I don't have that answer right now, but I'll help you find it. And I said, nobody has asked that question before? He said, Glenn, I don't think the prophet has asked that question. Well, he should. I did all of my investigation. My wife did hers. We weren't married yet, but we searched as a couple and as individuals. I was not going to accept something that wasn't true. I was not going to live a lie. I had spent my whole life living a lie. It had to be true. I had to believe it. So I continued my search. We started doing callings before we were even members. We did. It was my way of escaping. It was my way of getting out of it. Because every scripture I read, it said, prove me. Prove me. You do this, I'll do that. So me, being the Lord's most impertinent, I said, oh, really? Well, you cease to be God. You don't exist if I do this and you do not do that, because you, my friend, are handcuffed to the truth. Me, not so much. You, absolutely. Started paying tithing. Holy cow. You want me to give you money? And you're like gonna do something for the Lord? Sounds like a scam to me. Prove me. We did. We paid tithing. Let me tell you something. When I first started my search, I couldn't afford a payment of a monthly apartment of $695 a month. That was in 1999. It is now 2007. I just signed a $50 million contract. The Lord does not care about how much money I make. The Lord cares about how much money I give. The Lord is looking for good stewards. He is looking for people, prove me. He said it to me. It goes two ways. Okay, you want a little success? You think you can handle it? You think you can handle your money? Good. I'm going to prove you. I'll give you success. I'll give you money. I'll give you everything. What are you going to do with it? I was so tired. I just wanted peace. I just wanted to be able to survive. I didn't want to be a Mormon. But one Sunday, the amazing Mr. Plastic Man was teaching. That is what I called him, the amazing Mr. Plastic Man, and his amazing plastic family that could play the piano. Would you like to hear us play the piano and sing? The guy who told me the first time, "We love you." And I mocked him for it. The guy who had an amazing family, who loved me, and I mocked them for it. I questioned their sincerity. He stood up in a meeting one Sunday, and he told the concept of Zion. Wow, that's a pretty sweet concept. It's a concept that once we all connect, once all of our hearts are pure, once all of our hearts say, you know what, Lord, I don't need this money, I don't need this, here's what I need this much. And I willingly help everyone else. When I willingly serve the Lord in everything I do, when we all do it, everything changes. We are transformed. What a glorious concept. I believe it can be true. But he asked the question, how can we make that happen, brethren? How can we make it happen? Everybody had a different answer. I didn't have one. I don't know. Few people had answers. He finally said, brothers, there is only one way. We may not like each other. We may not like the choices that each of us make, but I'll tell you what, we got to love each other. If I honestly love you and you love me the first time we meet, and I love you and you love me, and I love you, you and you, and you, and you, and you love me, the world will change. He had tears running down his cheeks, and I knew the amazing Mr. Plastic Man was not plastic at all. He was the most genuine person I had ever met. He had something that I had never seen before. True love of his fellow man, and he was able to pass that on to his children and his family. And they meant it. It was at that moment that I said, I don't care if there is Kool-Aid that I have to drink. I don't care if I have to drink it every day of my life. I want to be like that. And I want my family to be like that. I just want to be happy. I called my friend Pat. I said, Pat, I want you to baptize me. You ever see one of those cartoons where somebody's on the phone with somebody and says, hey, can you get here? And then all of a sudden, whoosh, and they're right here. That's the way it was. Pat's like, I ain't missing this opportunity. Hold him, almost have him. We stood in the water. Must have been about 20 minutes. He couldn't get the words out because he knew how much my life was going to change. He couldn't get the words out because he had been a steadfast friend for so long and had worked so long and prayed so hard. Soften his heart, Lord. And I had been beaten down so far that I had nothing left. And I was crying in the water because I was crying out to the Lord. Lord, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I don't want to be a Mormon. I just want peace. I want you to carry my burden. I need you to forgive me and help me forget. Please, I'll do anything. I will serve you. I will do what you ask me to do. I want to testify to you that my life changed overnight. I want to testify to you that I am not the same man. I may look the same, I may sound the same, but I am not the same man. And it happened in a blink of an eye. I told you at the beginning, I don't want to be a Mormon. Who chooses to have people say, look at those people over there. What are they, stupid? Who chooses to have people say, oh, they're in league with the devil? I'm on national television. It just happened to me this week. And it happens to me over and over, where someone will say, well, you're not a Christian. The healing power of Jesus Christ transformed me. I apologize to the Lord for that statement. You diminish him. Nothing else could have changed me. I am an imperfect man. I am a man who still struggles to go to church, to do my home teaching, to not swear, to not do the things that are so easy to do. But I don't do them because I am so grateful for the gift that I have been given. I am so grateful to a loving Father in heaven who would never give up on me. I am so grateful for a good family. I am so grateful for a good friend that never preached to me, just lived it, let me see it, showed me the path when I was ready. I testify to you that the secret that I have found is no secret at all. It is a tough journey because it requires honesty and hard work. But I am here to testify to you that it is worth every moment of that journey. It is the greatest miracle of all of mankind. The windows of the universe will be opened up and blessings will rain down on you beyond your wildest imagination. If you just want it, if you just seek it, if you just do it. And I leave you this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.